Good evening. My name is Diana Dakey, currently president of the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County. We welcome you to tonight's debate. It's wonderful to see such a large crowd here. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County and the University of Scranton Political Science Department. I want to tell you about the League. The League is nonpartisan, which means that we do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The mission of the League is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation by citizens in their government. We encourage you to support our work with a small monetary donation on your way out. And you can see Tom Welby, who has there he is with blue collection boxes, or one of the students on your way out. And your donation helps us to record these events and make information available to the public. On that note, we want to thank ECTV for taping tonight's debate. Note that this is not a live broadcast, but the full taped debate will air on Comcast 19 local TV. So please check the ECTV schedule, which can be found on our website. The taped debates will be available through a link to YouTube, and the link is from our website, and that is www.lwvlackawanna.org. Be an informed voter concerning other offices as well. We've recently taped interviews for candidates for Lackawanna County Sheriff, Lackawanna County Recorder of Deeds, Lackawanna County Register of Wills, and Scranton Tax Collector. And you may view these debates also via a link from our website. And also please note in your program the information concerning Thursday's debate among candidates for Scranton School Board. And the location, that will also be at 7 o'clock. It will be here at the University of Scranton. The room location is in your program. Please make a note of that and attend and encourage your friends and neighbors. So tonight's debate is between candidates for the mayor of Scranton. Two candidates will appear on the November ballot for this office, Democrat Bill Courtwright and Republican Jim Mulligan. We have just a few procedural items for the audience. Would you be so kind as to turn off your phones and silence all devices? And our media statement, I would like to read to the audience. No person, candidate, or political group is allowed to use or edit any media from the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County event for campaign purposes. Any use of the media requires the express written approval of the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County. The audio or video must be broadcast in its entirety except by legitimate media reporting on events. So now I would like to introduce our moderator, Jean Harris, chairperson of the Political Science Department at the University of Scranton and a League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County board member, will serve as moderator for tonight's debate.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you, and good evening. Let me just review the details of how we'll proceed this evening. This will be approximately a 60-minute debate. Each candidate will answer the same set of questions, and no questions were given in advance. There will be no opening statements from the candidates. All questions will have a specified response time. 2 rebuttals per candidate will be allowed during the debate, and each rebuttal is a 1-minute rebuttal. Candidates will be allowed a 2-minute closing statement. And we ask that you hold all applause until the end of your candidate's closing statement. So throughout the debate, we ask that there be no applause or comments from the audience. The rationale for questions. The League of Women Voters believes that democratic government depends upon the informed and active participation of its citizens. This requires that governmental bodies protect the citizens' right to know by giving adequate notice of proposed actions, holding open meetings, and making public records accessible. In addition, we believe that responsible government should be responsive to the will of the people. It requires integrity and accountability. So I would now like to introduce the 2 candidates in alphabetical order as they're seated. First, Mr. Bill Cartwright. He's a native of Scranton, has lived in Scranton since 1957. Mr. Cartwright graduated from West Scranton High School in 1975. He was employed as a manager at Tran Corporation Management, where he managed a budget of over $1 million. Bill is a former member of the Scranton Civil Service Commission, the Pennsylvania Police Commission, and Scranton City Council from 2004 to 2010. Currently, he owns Summit Karate Club and is employed as the Scranton tax collector. Mr. Cartwright. Mr. Jim Mulligan is a native of Scranton. He graduated from Riverside High School in Taylor in 1975. He received a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice from Penn State University and a master's degree in public administration from Villanova University. He also earned a Juris Doctorate from Antioch University. Jim has lived in Scranton since 1987. He has served as an assistant district attorney in Lackawanna County, the city of Scranton solicitor, as the general counsel to Scranton's Office of Economic and Community Development, and as counsel to the Scranton Sewer Authority. Currently, he is self-employed as a lawyer, and he owns his own law office here in Scranton. He also owns a dry cleaning business in Old Forge. In addition, he is an adjunct professor at Marywood University, teaching criminal justice. Mr. Jim Mulligan.
Thank you.
So now we will move into the question portion of our debate. And first, we'd like to start with the job description according to the Scranton Home Rule Charter. The mayor and council jointly shall be the governing body of the Scranton city government. The powers of the city government shall be divided among the executive and legislative branches of the city government. Power belonging to one branch of the government shall not be exercised by the other branch, except as expressly provided in this charter. Further in the charter, it says that all powers and duties of the city government which are legislative in nature shall be exercised and performed by the council. All powers and duties which are executive in nature shall be exercised or performed by the mayor or such other executive officer of city government as the mayor may designate, except as otherwise specifically provided herein. In the event the nature of any power or duty is uncertain, or the law creating such power or duty requires cooperation between the branches of city government, the president of council and the mayor shall fix the responsibility for the exercise of such power or the performance of such duty. And so that's the job description in the Scranton City Home Rule Charter. So question number one, we want to start by getting some information from the candidates about why they're interested in the position and then their skills. So the first question is this, and this is a minute and a half response time. The gritty reality of being hired by the voters to serve as the mayor for the city of Scranton is that it will be a very difficult job. Please explain why you want this job. And Mr. Cartwright will be answering the first question first.
All right, thank you. I know most people ask me if I'm crazy for running for this office. I'm sure they do the same for Mr. Mulligan. But I think as anybody that runs for office in the city of Scranton, it's our love for the city. But the last several years, I didn't like the direction in which the city was heading. I see our young children graduating high school, some going out of town for college, some staying here locally, some going into the workforce. And they don't come back, and we need to change that. So I feel that I have a lot to offer from my experience working in private industry, owning my own business, and on council, and now as tax collector. So I feel it's time for me to try to give back to the city of Scranton and try to right this ship and put us back on track.
Thank you. Mr. Mulligan, the same question. The gritty reality of being hired by the voters to serve as the mayor for the city of Scranton is that it will be a very difficult job. Please explain why you want this job.
Thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring tonight's event, as well as the University of Scranton for hosting tonight's event, and Dr. Harris for moderating tonight's event. And yes, the city is in a financial crisis, and it is going to be a difficult job. I believe that I possess the necessary qualifications and educational experience and professional experience to lead the city in the next 4 years. I have a law degree. I've practiced over 25 years in the public sector. I've represented the city of Scranton. I've negotiated contracts. I've represented the Office of Economic and Community Development. That's the lending arm of the city. I have great experience in working with OECD. I represented the Scranton Sewer Authority. I understand that office. Besides that, I have a master's degree from Villanova University in public administration. I teach at Marywood University. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I was an assistant district attorney. I understand the police department. So I believe that I possess the necessary qualifications and professional experience to lead the city in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should have clarified that we were going to kind of get more into skills in the second question. So I am going to ask the second question, and we'll start with Mr. Mulligan on this question. Wanting the job and having the knowledge and skills and abilities to do it well are two different things. What experience, skills, and abilities can you bring to the job that will make you a successful mayor?
Well, I think I've outlined for the public my skills. Besides practicing law for 25 years, primarily in the public sector, negotiating contracts in government-related entities. I've obtained a master's degree from Villanova University in public administration. I've worked with mayors. I've worked with county commissioners over the course of my career. I've worked with both Republicans and Democrats in the course of my career. I have a bachelor's degree, as I indicated, in criminal justice. I understand police work. I understand the theory behind police work. So I have a good grasp of the issues that are confronting the city, including the financial issues, as well as all of the other issues that are confronting the city. And I'm prepared to lead in a competent and respectful manner.
Thank you. The same question for Mr. Courtwright. Wanting the job and having the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do it well are two different things. What experience, skills, and abilities can you bring to the job that will make you a successful mayor?
I had 18 years' experience working with Train Corporation, a very large corporation, and I traveled extensively throughout the United States for them. I was in upper-level management, supervising hundreds of people throughout the United States. I spent a good amount of time on the Civil Service Commission under Mayor Jim Connors, and I served several years on the MOPEC Commission, which governs all the police academies throughout the United States. We determine their curriculum, and we determine what legal updates they will go through each and every year. 6 years on City Council, and I've said this more than once, that's an education that no school or no book could give you, and if you've watched City Council, I think you would agree. You learn each and every aspect of how the city operates. You get to one-on-one on live TV with the people of the city of Scranton. They saw me for 6 years. They know how I act, they know how I perform, they know how I will vote. Went into the tax office approximately 4 years ago, and I think everybody knows there was tremendous problems there. And we've enjoyed great success. $5 million more in my first year in additional revenue. $600 of undistributed funds sent over to the city of Scranton. $429,000 sent to the Scranton School District, where Superintendent King said we possibly saved all-day kindergarten. When I got there, the computer system was ready to crash, 90% capacity. We split it out. It was backed up sporadically at best. Now it's backed up each and every night. 2 disks are taken off site. I will be a full-time mayor. I will concentrate 100% solely on the city of Scranton.
Thank you. And the next question has to do with interacting with City Council, which is definitely part of the job of mayor. And this response time is 2 minutes. And Mr. Courtwright will give the first answer to this question. Other than attending City Council meetings, what actions will you take to establish and maintain a collegial working relationship with the members of City Council and City Council as a whole?
Well, I was in the election in a primary, and I went to each and every candidate that was running, and I went to the 2 individuals that were going to be remaining on Scranton City Council. And we discussed the way the meetings were conducted, and it can't continue that way. It needs to continue in a professional manner. And each and every member of this remaining on council, and the ones that were running, agreed. I've talked to on several occasions now with the people that ultimately will be on City Council, and we have gone over not only the way the meetings will be conducted, but when legislation is set down, if in fact they need me to come to a meeting, I will come to a meeting. If they want me to come to a caucus, I will come to a caucus. I spent 6 years on council. I know how it is. I have no fear of getting up there and letting the public stand at the podium and ask me questions. I did it for 6 years. And I believe that all 5 council members that are there now are ready and willing to work with me. I believe that because they told me so.
Thank you. The same question for Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you. I've also reached out to a number of the council members and that will serve in the next council, and they've also agreed to work with me as well. The city is facing some very significant issues, and I think we need to have an open and honest government. We need to have interaction between city council. We need to have the mayor working to initiate legislation that the council can have input on, and I'm prepared to work with them. The only problem that I have with Mr. Courtwright is that he in fact did serve on 6 years in council and 4 years as the city tax collector. And to date, I haven't been able to find one piece of legislation that Mr. Courtwright sponsored which would allow him or allow the city to emerge from distress. We are in debt $20 million. And Mr. Courtwright, in his 4-year tenure as the tax collector, has failed to file one lawsuit, not one lawsuit, in connection with collecting delinquent taxes. We have a $20 million deficit. My concern is that Mr. Courtwright is a part of the problem. He can't be a part of the solution. Working with council is imperative, but we need solutions. We need real solutions to real problems, and I'm prepared to put forth the solutions and work hard for the city of Scranton.
Have everybody?
Thank you. So one of your 2 one-minute rebuttals.
Mr. Walsh was my solicitor when I was in the tax office, and he solved many cases without taking them to court. That's why we didn't go to court. He was able to do it without stepping into court. As far as being part of the problem, I didn't make $52,000 a year for a part-time job while working for the city of Scranton and not pay my garbage bill, not pay my sewer bill, multiple liens against me. I didn't do that. I'm responsible. I know how to live within my means. This gentleman here is part of the current administration. If you want to continue on the way we've gone for the last 12 years, then vote for him.
Please no comments from the audience. We ask you to hold all comments until the end of the debate. The next question is a 2-minute response question as well, and Mr. Mulligan will be the first to answer this. Please describe, some believe the city of Scranton needs some outside help. Please describe 2 pieces of legislation you would propose to the state legislators that will provide the greatest benefit to the city of Scranton.
Initially, I would work with the state legislator to enact the local service tax, to increase the local service tax from $52 to $156 per year. That would immediately raise $3.4 million for the city, which would be reoccurring revenue on a continuous basis. That's number one. Number two, I would look to the state legislature to enact the Johnstown Tax Initiative. That legislation is specifically designed for municipalities that have a certain percentage of tax-exempt properties within the city limits. It's a revenue sharing type of legislation. Because the city of Scranton meets the requirements of that legislation, we would in fact be entitled to millions of dollars. And I would reach out to our state legislators, to our governor, to each and every elected official in order to enact those 2 pieces of legislation so that we can obtain the funds that are necessary to help us emerge from distress.
Thank you. Mr. Courtwright?
Well, I've spoken to Representative Flynn, Representative Haggerty, and extensively to State Senator Blake, and coincidentally on this subject. There's so many different pieces of legislation out there, but one is Senate Bill 1033. It's called CRIZ, and I'll read briefly to you what it is. The program would allow funding for redevelopment within a clearly identified zone or combination of zones, including not more than 100 acres. It would include commercial, exhibition, hospitality, conference, retail, and mixed purposes. This would be funded through public bonds, and it would be paid off over time by new state and local revenues. This program is already in place in Allentown, and it has been extremely successful in the city of Allentown, driving millions and millions of dollars into private investment into the downtown in Allentown. And this is the one thing that we spoke about. We also spoke about the LST tax, and that's a possibility, but you would potentially triple the LST tax. The only good part about it is the senior citizens who are not employed wouldn't have to pay it. There's another thing that's being kicked around, and that is a sales tax, a statewide sales tax. Or not sales tax, I'm sorry, a statewide tax that would help cities under distress status, Act 47, to come out of the status. And I'll give you an example, and geez, in this town it might not be a good example, but this is what we were going to use. Say, for instance, beer. If they were to put a nickel on tax on the beer, you would generate $100 million. And again, beer's not the one we're doing, but I just want to bring it up. And I have a whole list of things that I've gone through with Senator Blake and the representatives. Another thing is Senate Bill 219. We have a lot of single parents in this town. And Senate Bill 219 would enable single parents, if they work for an employer that has child care, that employer would get tax incentives so that, I'm going to stop things, so that they, their children can go to child care there. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
thank you.
May I have a rebuttal?
Sure, so this is one of your two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Courtwright just outlined for you why the city needs change. He's been part of the problem. For 6 years, he served on council. For 4 years, he served as the tax collector. He could have used that as a bully pulpit. He could have reached out to state legislators. He could have asked to enact legislation that would help us emerge from distress, but he was silent on all of those issues. I can't allow Mr. Courtwright to be silent when our city is headed to Detroit. Statewide taxes are available. Initiatives are available. Not one single initiative has Mr. Courtwright brought forth as a city council person, not one initiative with any of the senators or representatives, and what's even more disturbing, not one single lawsuit to collect taxes in the course of his 4 years as the tax collector. We are drowning in debt, and Mr. Courtwright didn't see fit to pursue tax delinquents that would raise tens of millions of dollars for this great city.
Time is up, I'm sorry. We had a snafu with the clock. So thank you. On your next rebuttal, Mr. Courtwright, we will give you some extra time as well to try to balance that out.
I can use it now?
If you want just 30 seconds, yeah.
Well, I'm going to let the Scranton Times speak for me here. Here's an article on Mr. Mulligan. He didn't speak out. He didn't speak out when, in at least 3 years, he refused to pay his garbage fee while drawing a salary from the city of Scranton.
Okay, again, please, I ask that everybody please hold all moans and comments until the end.
He did not pay his sewer bills. Here's a list of things. April 2007, sued by Four Seasons Tree Corporation because he didn't pay them. The same month, Mr. Mulligan borrowed $29,000 from Franklin Security Bank for a Jeep that they had to repossess. In January of 2008, Landmark Community Bank secured a judgment for $191,000. In January of 2011, Judge William, I can't pronounce his last name, in King of Prussia, found in favor a yellow book for over $11,000. It goes on and on and on. He said I stood silent. He stood silent when it was time to pay the people of the city of Scranton, where he was drawing a salary from.
Time is up. Thank you.
May I have my rebuttal?
And we've lost a little time on the rebuttal, so from here forward, you both have one 1-minute rebuttal left for the entire debate. If you would like to use your final 1-minute rebuttal, that's fine.
Thank you. Not unlike many Scranton families, yes, my wife and I have experienced some struggles during the course of our marriage. We've supported 9 children, but we've addressed our issues. Unfortunately, Mr. Courtwright, he's never stood up and addressed his issues. When he got called out by the Scranton Times for having one of his employees steal taxpayer money, he found to blame everybody but himself. Mr. Courtwright, you're the tax collector. She was your employee. She stole taxpayer money, and then you allowed her steal again by letting her collect unemployment. That's unconscionable. That's your record, and that's what I'm talking about, your record. I haven't called you out personally. I've asked about your record. That's your record as a public servant, Mr. Courtwright. You allowed her to collect unemployment after stealing taxpayer money, and you didn't even go back to find out the full extent of the theft.
And that's the end of that rebuttal? Unless you want to rebuttal right
Yeah, I'll take my last
now.
one.
Mr. Courtwright, this would be your,
My final one, okay.
this will be your final rebuttal, and it's,
Jean, both candidates have used 2 minutes.
but, yes, but there was an extra time on one, so we had to give Mr. Courtwright 30 seconds. So this is the final 1-minute rebuttal. After this, there'll be no more rebuttals, and we'll get back to the questions that are looking at issues. But we have a 1-minute rebuttal at this point. Mr. Courtwright.
I did not allow her to collect unemployment. The paperwork does not come to me. It goes to the city of Scranton. It did not come to my office. Attorney Walsh and myself, we had things in place to catch her. She sold $1,800. We caught her. Immediately, Attorney Walsh and myself went to the district attorney, turned it over to the district attorney. He handled it. He pursued it. He got a conviction. She paid the money back, and she was arrested. I don't know what else we could have done. We immediately, Attorney Walsh and myself immediately went down to the district attorney's office. And once again, I don't determine whether she collects unemployment or not. It does not come to my office. It goes to the city of Scranton.
Thank you. So we are now done with all rebuttals. The next question goes back to the need for Scranton to get some outside help. And Mr. Courtwright will start this question. Please explain 2 actions you would advocate for the Lackawanna County Commissioners to take that would assist the city of Scranton to function more efficiently.
One thing is a program called Land Bank that we're able to use in the city of Scranton. And again, working with Senator Blake, he's already been in touch with Lackawanna County. So working with the county and the state, Land Bank will enable us to take properties that are blighted or condemned, put them back on the tax rolls, enable us to sell them much easier than we could now under the Pittsburgh plan. And so it'll take blighted properties off the street and put more tax dollars in people's pockets, back on the tax rolls, I should say. What was it?
So the question was actions that the county commissioners and the county government can take that would assist the city function more efficiently.
Okay, the other thing is right now the city has a collection agency that collects the delinquent taxes for the city. And I think what we could take a look at is after, it's National Revenue Service, I believe is the name of the company, and they're doing a fine job. But after approximately 2 years, if we were to turn it over to Mr. Koljeski and let them put it on a judicial sale so that we can get those properties sold, because we haven't really had a sale in the city of Scranton in quite some time.
Thank you. The same question for Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you. In fact, that's a part of my plan that I've put forth for the people of Scranton. Number one, I've already, for the last 5.5 years, worked on judicial sales for the county. I've raised millions of dollars with respect to delinquent properties, putting them back on the tax rolls. I would insist that more Scranton properties are put into the judicial sale so that we could raise significant amounts of money. I would work with the county commissioners in connection with a comprehensive real estate program, one that would take blighted properties off the rolls, raise revenue, put properties back on the tax rolls, foster economic development, and foster economic development. There's a whole host of things that we can do with the county, and I'm prepared to work with them, and I have done so. So I'd have a good relationship with the county to work with them in connection with judicial sales and any other issues or initiatives.
Thank you. Now we're going to get more into the heart of the matter in terms of fiscal distress. Clearly, Scranton city government has to eliminate its persistent pattern of structural deficits. Financial institutions are indicating that they will not loan the city money until the city has a realistic budget. We will first discuss the revenue side of the budget, and then we'll turn to the spending side. What specific changes are you willing to fight for in your first year as mayor to move toward eliminating Scranton's structural deficit? What I'm going to do is I'm going to list 5 revenue sources, and I just want a one-sentence answer initially, and then we're going to come back and give you time to elaborate. And so the one-sentence answer we would be looking for is that you are willing to fight for an increase in this revenue source, a decrease in the fee or the tax, fight to reform the tax or the fee, or fight for no change. Okay, so 4 options. I will repeat them if you need me to. So the first revenue source is the real estate tax. And Mr. Mulligan, this is for you first.
I would, at this point in time, not change the real estate tax. I would not increase it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Courtwright, the real estate tax.
I would not choose to increase it, try to decrease it.
The next is the wage tax. Mr. Mulligan again.
Completely too high, has a chilling impact on the
So
city.
you would,
Try to decrease it.
thank you. Mr. Courtwright,
Try to decrease it.
thank you. The mercantile business privilege tax.
It's
Mr. Mulligan.
oppressive, and I would try to decrease it.
Mr. Courtwright.
Agreed, decrease it.
The real estate transfer tax. Mr. Mulligan.
Completely too high. I would move to a structured, tiered.
One sentence, you would reform it then, and we'll come
Yeah,
back.
I would reform it.
Thank you.
Reform
Mr.
it,
Courtwright.
reform it.
Thank you. One more and one sentence, the garbage fee. Mr. Mulligan.
I would move to a per-bag basis.
Mr. Courtwright.
I would leave it the way it is right now.
Okay. So we've gone through some of the bulk of the taxes that are collected by the city of Scranton with a one-sentence answer. So the follow-up question, which is a 2-minute response time, please select one of your answers on the taxes or fee and just and give an explanation and or justification for your proposed action, your change, your reform, and we'll start this one with Mr. Courtwright.
Do all of them or just pick one?
Just pick one of those so you can hone in on that.
Okay, I'm going to pick the BP and Merck tax. I work very aggressively to try to reduce it, and I don't think anybody here, we're not fooling anybody. It's going to be difficult to reduce any tax in the city, given the current conditions that we have. But the BP and Merck tax just basically prevents business from wanting to come into this city. So we really need to address that. Could I go on to other ones, or do I have to stay on just the one?
You have the time, so if you want to
all
add,
right.
you can.
The real estate transfer tax, in the primary, I was interviewed by the Board of Realtors, and in the general, the same thing. And that's one of the biggest problems they find. I believe we're at least 2% more than the outlying communities for the real estate transfer tax. So I would certainly take a look at that. My fear of a per-bag garbage thing is that in the city of Scranton, it's a much larger city than some of the smaller towns that have it. I think you're going to have people in the middle of the night dumping garbage off on other people's properties. And right now, our DPW pretty much takes just about anything you put out there. And from remodeling materials to refrigerators, TVs, and I don't know how we would handle that if we went to a per-bag fee. So that would have to be something that we would take a look at. Real estate tax, if the state legislature finds a way to eliminate, the school real estate tax, that would be very, very good for the people of the city of Scranton. I believe they're working on it, but it's a difficult job. So overall, yes, you try to reduce each and every tax and each and every fee, but I think we need to be realistic. And we need to take a look and see what could be done and what can't be done. We don't want to go out and reduce a tax. I believe we did that a year or two ago, and the very next year, boom, we had to put it back up. So I think we need to be very realistic on how we go about handling this.
Thank you. And so again, Mr. Mulligan, the question was to choose one. If you have more time left in your 2 minutes, you can talk about more than one.
Well, I've met with Pell, and Pell has indicated to me, that's the Pennsylvania Economy League, that our problem here in the city of Scranton is the revenue. The revenue base has shrunk. We need to rebuild the revenue base. And how do we do that? The first thing we need to do is address the real estate transfer tax. It has a chilling effect on businesses and or homeowners purchasing property within the city. It's 4.4%. If you go to Music, it's 2%. If you go to Dunmore, it's 2%. We need to have a structured, tiered approach toward the real estate transfer tax so that we can grow the tax base and put more properties on the tax rolls. I would start by properties that are below $200,000 and less, put a lower tax on those in connection with the real estate transfer tax. With respect to the business privilege mercantile tax, again, it's an oppressive tax. We need to grow our tax base. There are no businesses that are willing to come to the city of Scranton as long as they're taxed on their gross income. And we need to find ways to find revenue streams, new revenue streams, to replace the revenue that would be lost by either a reduction in the mercantile tax or the real estate transfer tax.
Thank you. This next question is also about revenue, and it has a 2-minute response time. With $7.8 million in delinquent trash fees, some delinquencies dating back 14 years, the city enacted a plan to pursue collection. Are there any other uncollected revenue sources you would pursue? And if so, please explain. And Mr. Mulligan, you start with this question.
Well, I would be aggressive with respect to pursuing all revenue in connection with the city. And I would be pursuing all of the delinquent taxes that are owed. And that's what's troubling for me, is that my opponent has had 4 years as the tax collector and hasn't saw fit to pursue or file a lawsuit against one tax delinquent in the city. That's tens of millions of dollars in revenue that we're losing that would help eliminate or reduce the structural deficit. So I would be aggressive in pursuing all of the taxes that are being collected by the single tax office, as well as any and all fees that are collected by the city itself.
Thank you. Mr. Courtwright?
Mr. Walsh obviously isn't here to defend himself, so I will. I stated earlier, he had cases where he was going to take court, filed to go to court, or would send notices out to the individuals. He settled them before they got to court. I don't know how much plainer to make that. As far as collecting other taxes, I mean, as I said before, we got people that aren't paying their sewer bills. I think we need to be aggressive collecting our sewer bills. How do you say we didn't do a good job in the tax office when we collected $5 million more in the first year I was there? $600,000 sitting there that nobody knew about. We found it and we turned it over to the city of Scranton. $429,000 that nobody knew about. We turned it over to the Scranton School District. I think we've been very successful, and I think it's an insult on the people that work in my office. I think they've done a fabulous job, and I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question on the revenue side before we move to the spending side. A 2-minute response time. Do you support or oppose the request for a commuter tax for the 2014 fiscal year? And please justify your support or opposition to such a request. And we'll start with Mr. Courtwright.
Well, as was stated earlier, it's a possibility that the LST tax would, if it was raised to $150-some, would bring in the revenue. If in fact that was to happen, then I wouldn't support a commuter tax. But other than that, I would support a commuter tax. The people of the city of Scranton can't bear the brunt of anything any longer. And the thing to understand is this, is that the commuter tax isn't going to go on forever. They would have to go each and every year and justify having this tax. So if in fact there was an LST tax that would replace it, I wouldn't go for it. But if not, I would be in favor of the commuter tax.
Thank you. Mr. Mulligan?
I would oppose the commuter tax. It's a temporary tax that's imposed until the city of Scranton can emerge from distress. And so it's essentially a way of securing some revenue until a point in time when we can emerge from distress. But ultimately, we have to fill that revenue stream. So I would oppose the commuter tax. I think the city of Scranton and the people of Scranton have to resolve their own problems. We have to have a comprehensive real estate program in order to raise revenue without raising taxes, to take properties out of blight and foster economic development. And we need to be more vigilant, and I don't want to repeat this, but we need to be more vigilant about having the single tax office pursue tax delinquents by virtue of lawsuits. Mr. Corright has failed to do that.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to the spending or the expenditure side of the city's budget, and the first question also has a 2-minute response time. Most of the city's operating budget, about 79%, is spent on providing services. In addition to increasing revenue, spending cuts must also be considered to eliminate deficit spending. In this year's operating budget, police and fire account for 64%, with 99% of those dollars paying for salaries and benefits. 16% of the budget is spent on the Department of Public Works, of which 2/3 is for salary and benefits. So the question is, what service areas should or could be cut, and what would you do to gain support so the cuts could actually be implemented? If you don't support cuts in any of these areas, then in what areas would you propose spending cuts for the city of Scranton? And Mr. Mulligan, you answer this question first.
Thank you. Well, 80% of our budget is labor-related. The police and fire unions have a stranglehold on the taxpayers. Unfortunately, my opponent, he appears to be the spokesperson for the police and fire unions. Just last week at the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Corright indicated that the fire and police departments will negotiate with only Mr. Corright if he's elected. That's extortion. That is holding the taxpayers hostage. We can't afford 4 more years of Mr. Corright. He's in the pockets of the union, and they've been taking us to the cleaners. I would look for savings in every department within City Hall. We need to be efficient, we need to be creative, and we need to be innovative. So I would be looking at restructuring and reforming all aspects of city government in order to find savings, but I would be stuck with some of the contracts that are currently in place. However, I wouldn't be adverse to asking the city unions, including the fire and police department, to come back to the table for some concessions.
Thank you. The same question for you, Mr. Corright.
Well, about 2 weeks ago, Mr. Mulligan went to the police union and asked for their support. So it's kind of ironic that he's saying now that they're the problem. As Mr. Mulligan stated earlier, he works for the city of Scranton. He worked under the mayor. The mayor has given the DPW, the police department, the fire department contracts through 2017. They have contracts through 2017. The budget that comes for next year will come from the mayor and this council. Could we ask them to open up the contracts and help us out? Yes. I've spoke to all 3, and their rank and file membership, not the union leaders, the rank and file membership have come to me saying they have suggestions, they have ideas how to save money. Please talk to us. They said no one has come to us and asked us. Communications, I think that's the thing. We don't want to go down the road again of not speaking to the unions. We're going to end up with another $30 million arbitration award. You need to have communications. I will communicate with them, and I will do the best job that we possibly could for the city of Scranton. But understand one thing, 2017, they have their contracts due.
Because I don't feel like we got any talk about spending cuts someplace, I will go back and ask if there's, other than police, fire, DPW, if there are other specific cuts that you would be willing to make. And this is just a 1-minute question. And we'll start with Mr. Corright.
Well, I believe in the last year or so, the mayor and the council have cut pretty much to the bare bone. I don't know much more what is left to cut if you're going to exclude those 3 entities. I think there's some overtime, a lot of overtime that could be saved in those other 3 entities, but you're limiting, you're not allowing me to use those. So, I mean, some people say zero-based budgeting. Well, anybody that's run a successful business operates under that premise, zero-based budgeting. You don't buy or spend money that you don't have. If you do, you won't be successful.
Thank you. Mr. Mulligan?
And I, too, am a proponent of zero-based budgeting, but I believe that there are other savings that could be found in connection with health care costs that the city is incurring right now. So I would be vigilant and looking at every department and looking to every department head to find savings in the health care department.
Thank you. Let's move on to discuss something other than the city's budget problems. Other than financial stress, what do you see as a top priority issue for the city of Scranton, and how do you, as mayor, get it addressed? And so this is a question with a 2-minute response, and we'll have Mr. Mulligan answer first.
Initially, I think we need to be vigilant about public safety. It's critical that our city continue to be safe, that our neighborhoods are safe. We have great neighborhood groups that are formed and working with the police department. So I would be very concerned about public safety. I'd also be concerned about the infrastructure. I've traveled each and every inch of this city, knocked on doors in every community, and most of the people have concerns about paving and potholes. And so I would be also concerned about and looking for ways to address those issues in addition to the finances that the city is facing.
Thank you. Mr. Cartwright?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Other than financial stress, what do you see as a top priority issue for the city of Scranton, and how do you, as mayor, get it addressed?
Well, he said about public safety, and I couldn't agree more. We saw what happened when we closed the firehouse up on the East Mountain, a tragedy. People lost their home. All we need to do is take a look down to Wilkes-Barre or Hazleton and see 10, 11 murders in Wilkes-Barre in 1 year. Just recently over in Greenridge, and I don't have the exact specifics, but I'm told a gangbanger they thought was held up in a house over in Greenridge Street. The police had it surrounded. This gentleman evidently is wanted down in Wilkes-Barre for threatening to kill a police officer. So we do need public safety. I think, and Mr. Mulligan touched on potholes. Every single election I've ever knocked on doors, that's an issue. Speaking with some of the guys from the DPW, they had some suggestions, and one of them was, you know, somebody will call in to the dispatcher and complain about a pothole, and they'll just jot it down, and somebody comes in to go out and fix it. Their suggestion was, let's get somebody there with a computer, let's log all of these in, and we'll go and hit one part of the city today, get them all done, instead of going from South Side to North Scranton to Greenridge. And the other thing is the neighborhoods. I think the mayor did a really good job in the downtown. I applaud him for that. And we have a neighborhood down in the downtown. But I think we need to get back into the neighborhoods. I think we neglected them somewhat. And that's why I say Land Bank is going to help us solve that problem. Land Bank will take those blighted properties and put them, repair them or sell them and put them back on the tax rolls.
Thank you. A change of subject here. Democracy calls for transparency and accountability. City Council has weekly open public meetings. Much of what the council members hear from citizens at these meetings is actually more relevant to the executive side of city government. That is, concerns about administering city policies and procedures. As mayor, what means will you establish to provide Scrantonians with regular access to you and others in your administration so that they can discuss with you and your administration their concerns and proposed solutions to Scranton's problems? So this is a question with a 2-minute response time, and we'll start with Mr. Cartwright.
Well, as far as access to me, all they'll need to do is come over to the office and see me. They did it when I was on council. Actually, some people would, at nighttime, stand out my karate school and wait till I got done so they could ask me questions. So I don't think that access to me is going to be a problem. I think when people come into council meeting with their frustrations, some of them were, and trust me when I tell you this, I know the general perception is that, but there's some people that come there with good, legitimate questions. And some of the problem was legislation would be there. They don't get to see the backup. That would be the information that we, as council members, got to see. So if somehow we could put that online, you know, so that they could see it in real time, that would be something that I would like to do.
Thank you. Mr. Mulligan?
As the next mayor, transparency is paramount to me. I think that we need to have open access to the mayor. I've actually thought about having a community liaison between the mayor and the various neighborhoods. I'm going to schedule meetings for taxpayers to meet with me on a regular basis. I'd like to see some of our meetings be taken right to the various neighborhoods, to Manuka, to North Scranton, to West Scranton. I'm going to be a full-time mayor, unlike my opponent. I will be a full-time mayor, and the people of Scranton will have complete access to me, and I would be willing to work with any neighborhood group or any stakeholder in the city.
Thank you. This question is a briefer question, kind of a follow-up, a minute and a half for response time, if you need that. Will you commit to providing on the city's website the documentation for legislative proposals that you send to City Council so that citizens can read, reflect on, and provide input for your proposals? So will you commit to providing on the city's website the documentation for legislative proposals that you send to City Council so that the citizens can read, reflect on, and provide input for your proposals? If yes, fine. If not, why not? And so a minute and a half, and we'll start with Mr. Mulligan.
Yes, I would, with one proviso. I would not allow any personal information of any individual, any particular company, any group to be divulged. But other than that, I would be a proponent of complete access to all the legislation and any backup material that supports that legislation.
Thank you. Mr. Cartwright?
I believe I answered that in my previous question. Yes, I would be willing to do that.
Thank you. This question will have a 2-minute response time. How do you respond to the perception held by many University of Scranton students that many Scrantonians believe that the university and its students are nothing but a drain on the city's resources? So how do you respond to the students and to the city residents that the university perceives the citizens of the city believe the university is a drain and that the students are a drain? This question starts with Mr. Courtwright.
I don't believe that the people think that. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that think that. How do I start? I start by telling them 3 of my children went to this school and graduated from here. My younger son is still in school here. He's at the medical college here. So I don't believe it's a drain. Did they take some properties off the tax rolls? Yes. Do we need a better relationship with the University of Scranton? Absolutely. The relationship that we have with the University of Scranton right now is not acceptable. When I'm mayor, we're going to go and sit down with the city of Scranton, speak to them, see how we can partner with them to be advocates for the city, for the University of Scranton, not adversaries. And I know people say, you know, that the university is a drain. I don't think they say the students are. My God, the students spend thousands and thousands of dollars here each and every day. And without them, I wonder what the downtown would look like.
Thank you. Mr. Mulligan?
I disagree with the perception or the comment that they are a drain on the city of Scranton. The University of Scranton is an economic engine. It's the largest employer in the city of Scranton. We have some of the finest schools here, the Kenya School of Business. And I would go further, Marywood University, Lackawanna College, the medical school. I view those as all economic engines that could help the city. For example, and in part of my plan, I've suggested that we have some of the students from the MBA classes here at the university come and examine the books for the city of Scranton to determine what the best practices that are being employed across the Commonwealth and across the country, and how they can help with us to emerge from the distress. I'm also a proponent of silence, services in lieu of taxes. They could come and actually, the IT department, the business school, we could have Marywood students come. So I'm a huge proponent of the University of Scranton. I don't believe it's a drain on the city of Scranton. I think it's a real asset, and I think City Council and the mayor need to step up and work with the universities throughout the area.
Thank you. We've now gotten through the debate questions, and so we'll turn to the closing statements from each candidate. Hopefully we'll get through them easily. And I remind you to hold comments and applause until the end of the closing statement of each candidate. We drew numbers at the beginning, and I believe Mr. Courtwright will go first with his closing statement, and he has 2 minutes for his closing statement. Mr. Courtwright.
Well, first, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out this evening and thank the League of Women Voters. I'd like to say this. I will be a full-time mayor. I don't know how my opponent's going to be a full-time mayor when he has a law practice and a business to run and 9 children that are still in school. I think it's an impossibility. I will be a full-time mayor. I will be here each and every day. I will put my heart and soul into taking care of this city. I think people have seen me. They've seen me again on live TV. They know how I would react. They know I'm sincere. To attack some of the things they've done at the tax office, I think, are ridiculous. I mean, we've had great success there, and I'm not going to go on any further with that. I think it's an insult to the employees in my office. But I'm asking for your vote because I truly believe we can fix the problems in this city. I don't think they're unsurmountable. Is it going to take a lot of time and a lot of hard work? Absolutely. Is there going to be a lot of pain to be distributed throughout? Yes, there is. But I believe we can get it done. We don't just give up. And I thank you for your support, and I'm asking for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Courtwright. Mr. Mulligan?
Thank you. I, too, would like to thank the League of Women Voters. I'd like to thank the University of Scranton. I'd like to thank Dr. Harris for being here. And I'd like to extend my thanks to Bill Courtwright for discussing the issues with me this evening. And campaigns are very difficult, and primarily on the families of the candidates. And we're seated here debating issues and being analyzed and criticized. So I'd also like to have a special thanks to my wife and to my 9 children for joining me on this incredible journey that we've taken all across the great city of Scranton. You've heard tonight 2 versions of, or 2 visions of where the city should be headed. Clearly, my opponent is out of touch. I really don't believe Mr. Courtwright fully understands the enormity of the challenges that are facing the city of Scranton. We are in a $20 million deficit, and unfortunately, my opponent is part of the problem. He's been in city government for 10 years. His plan is to refinance debt, find one-time revenue sources. Those have all been tried and failed. We need a new vision for the city. We need a plan. I've put forth a plan that will raise revenue without raising taxes. It will eliminate blight. It will put properties back on the tax rolls, and it will foster economic development. Essentially, it will grow the tax base. That's what the city of Scranton needs. I met with Pell for 3.5 hours. My opponent didn't meet with Pell. He hasn't been there. He doesn't understand the significance of the problems facing the city. And I didn't criticize Mr. Courtwright's employees. The buck stops with Mr. Courtwright. He's the single tax officer. 4 years, no lawsuits, could have collected tens of millions of dollars to help with the structural deficit. I'm asking for your help and support and your vote on November 5th for a new Scranton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, we wish to... Oh, that's okay. We wish to thank the candidates for making themselves available this evening, and want to thank Dr. Harris for moderating tonight's debate.
Excuse me, can you please be quiet for a second? It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. All right. Thank you for your attention and for being a very attentive audience. I want to thank Dr. Harris for moderating tonight's debate, and I want to thank the candidates for making themselves available so that the public could become educated. Don't forget to vote on Tuesday, November 5th. And would you please be so kind to support our work with a small donation on your way out. and read the announcements in your program, pass that on to your neighbors. Thank you very much for coming this evening.